We do here on Skiba News Nation. Please like and subscribe, and also share with others so we can grow the biggest truth-seeking community on the internet. Huge shout out to all of our Patreons out there. If you like bonus content, you want some extra Skiba News Nation stuff, please go to patreon.com/Skiba News Nation.
Welcome to Skiba News Nation, bringing you unfiltered views, news, interviews, discussions, and more. And now, here's your host, Jeremiah Skiba, award-winning musician and son of Rob Skiba.
With the son of the legendary Rob Skiba. Jeremiah Skiba, what's up?
With my great and insightful co-host, Mr. Jake Grant. It's like I don't even want to wake up. Yeah.
He's on a quest for truth.
Hey fellow truth seekers, something huge is coming. We're building the world's largest truther convention. It's called TrutherCon.
This is the place where truthers unite to explore knowledge, ask tough questions, and to challenge the mainstream narrative.
But it isn't just a convention, it's a movement for free thought, open discussion, and the right to question everything.
We are bringing in some of the biggest names of the truther community, so expect deep discussions, mind-blowing revelations, and connections with like-minded truth seekers.
If you feel like the truth is being hidden from you, this is where you need to be.
And the best part, it's 100% grassroots, built by truthers for truthers, straight from our Skiba News Nation family.
You can help us right now by liking and following our pages and share it with your favorite truther and help spread the word.
We're working to keep costs low, let children in free, and even offer passes to content creators who would like to meet their audience. TrutherCon will be a massive networking event where knowledge and community can come together.
Our website is now available so you can learn how to be a speaker, vendor, etc.
I believe this is going to be the most exciting truther event ever. We would love for you guys to join us.
Follow us for more updates to get ready for TrutherCon, where truth has no limits. October 2025 in Dallas, Texas. We hope to see you there. Hey Skiba News Nation family, welcome to episode 115 of Skiba News Nation. We're going to be talking about JFk Files and mind-blowing revelations. AI, the good versus the bad. The Gulf of America is Mexico's biggest gift. Freak storms across North America. Astronauts return to Earth. Something big is happening in the Middle East. Why Israel is being redacted from the JFK Files. An all-new Opas corner. And this week for History's Mysteries, we'll be talking about the long history of chemtrails, cloud seeding, and weather modification. Can I go ahead and just get Jake on? My great and insightful co-host, Mr. Jake Grant. And that way we're still talking about TrutherCon. There are so many people signing up, and I encourage you to sign up to stay notified. We already got speakers. It's becoming real. I mean, what are your thoughts, Jake?
Oh man, I am so excited. The truther community has needed this for so many years. A lot of the big festivals and conferences that were happening back when I first got into the online media, YouTuber, conspiracy realm, they fizzled out. And now there's a great need for people to meet other like-minded truth seekers. And I think that this conference is going to be a fantastic place for people to meet others that have a love for the truth, to hash out their unique conspiracy perspectives, but also, come to a common understanding of, what is truth, and hear people out from where they're coming from, because a lot of people are focused in some areas that other peoples don't have time to research. And so bringing these experts from all over the realm of conspiracy and truth and allowing them to get to the most essential aspects of what they've researched and come to find, and then present that to whoever comes to our conference, it's going to be so beautiful, man. So I'm so stoked for TrutherCon.
It's a conference mixed with a convention. It's going to be awesome. So you guys need to be there. But Jake and I were talking before the show about all this JFK stuff. And there are a couple ideas that I want to run past Jake and you, the audience. So 2 things I'm thinking about doing is putting out my JFK little miniature documentary, since all of this is happening right now. And it seems to be some of the theories were correct from me and my dad's studies. And the other thing I was thinking was, what if we released one of my dad's unpublished books at TrutherCon? That'd be pretty epic.
Hey, which one do you have in mind?
Probably Testing the Globe Part 2. I think that one would be a good one to start with. But we could talk more about it. You guys let me know in the comments what you think. But yeah, man, what do you think of all this JFK stuff?
I think it is very interesting. And I love that the live stream we've done earlier this week on Tuesday, it kind of demonstrates the same exact thing we're seeing come out about the JFK files. And just to let you guys know what happened, earlier this week, we had a live stream. We were covering, because there's so many news stories. So we are trying to cover some earlier in the week just to alleviate some of the time constraints that we do for this Friday episode. And in the middle of our episode live, we had close to 400 viewers tuning into the stream, watching with us, engaging in the chat. And then I played a clip from an Israeli news organization. And in real time, we saw it with our very own eyes. The censorship hammer just dropped right onto the live stream. And we went from 400 live viewers to like 40 in the span of 2 minutes. And it was just so shocking to see. And I was like, wow, we really must have tweaked something. We must have triggered some type of algorithm that is making sure nobody shares anything from this particular Israeli news organization. And so it reminds me of what we're seeing as the JFK documents are being released as of recording today. And the only thing that they're requesting be redacted from the JFK files is references to Israel and Jewish people. It's just so ridiculous to see that this is ancient history, back in the 60s, that they're still hiding some connection between Israel and the JFK files. So this is a Stu Peters post. The CIA requested that any mention of Israel be redacted in the JFK files. Israel is literally the only thing they're requesting to be redacted. What in the world? And I have a very interesting news segment that's going to go into this topic. But just to think about how many people have been waiting for these JFK documents, and the fact that they released documents that were severely redacted and stuff, and now that they're finally coming out willing to reveal the full picture, the one thing they're still redacting is any mention of Israel. And how does that relate to today's censorship of our live streaming media and our news broadcast earlier this week, where I shared an Israeli news clip and we live got to witness the censorship in action? And it just goes all the way back to JFK, apparently, Jeremiah. So,
well,
hey.
and the crazy thing is, the JFK assassination was the first time that the word conspiracy theorist was ever used. So all these, quote, conspiracy theorists that had different views are now being proven right. That just takes that word right out. We are now truthers. So, TrutherCon is an appropriate name.
Oh, yeah. I love that TrutherCon is being based out of Dallas, the very beginning of the term conspiracy coming from people who claimed an alternative narrative to the JFK files. And not only are we putting on TrutherCon in Dallas this year, it's the same year that all of the JFK files are being released. So it's intricately connected to me. I think it's like a divine appointment type thing, and I'm so excited.
Have you been there?
I've not personally been
Man,
to the grassy knoll.
you've been here so many times and we haven't taken you. We're gonna have to change that. Maybe we take like a group trip or something. It'd be fun.
Hey, during the TrutherCon kind of weekend, what we could do is have a little field trip with all of the expert JFKers out there. VIPs drop down to the grassy knoll together and take some pictures.
Roll down the hill. Yeah, that sounds like fun, dude. Well, you got some good current news for me today?
Yes, we do.
All right, let's get into it.
All right, guys. So this week I wanted to start off a little positive. Last Tuesday, we covered the communist takeover America and how they tried to, through the schooling system, alter the minds of the youth and take away the ability for parents to instill good principles and values in the next generation. And so this is a Sonny the Farmer post, and it says this: childhood play was replaced with PE. When family was replaced with school, baking and cleaning with mom was replaced with home ec. Gardening and animals became agriculture. Ag. Multiple school classes are just boring artificial copies of organic home education. It's time to take back childhood, guys. And while we talk about all of the negative conspiracies in the world and the things that are coming against mankind and the evil moguls of the system at large that holds the puppet strings, we got to stay focused on our home base. Because if we lose sight of what's actually important, what's actually valuable, which is our mind, our family, our home, and the environment we can actually get our hands on and affect personally, then we've lost sight of what's truly important. And if you're a lover of the truth, you're going to start with what's true in your own mind and in your own heart and in your own family and in your own home. So I thought, since we covered so much recently the rise of AI and this dystopian future that's very quickly coming, I saw this post also by Sonny the Farmer, and it's what if there was a more positive future for the use of AI? So let's check out this quick video. So, of course, what it's saying, the future with robotics and AI doesn't have to be dystopian. It can be utopian, too, where humans thrive with technology. And I thought this was very interesting, and I wanted to parallel it with the use of AI and things like the Doge coming in, using computing technology to crunch through the U.S. budget and reveal true and good things, like the corruption within our government, the misuse of and appropriation of funds through corrupt politicians, and also the use that AI has been presented to mankind as this tool for creativity, for organizing your thoughts, for helping learn at an extrapolated pace. And what I think is significant here is that we can have an outlook on the world of how technology can be used and create a dystopian future. But really, it's always the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, right? Any tool or technology that's given to mankind can be used for good, and it can be used for evil. And I think the greatest concern is that by lulling people into a sense of false security with the advent of AI and these pro uses for it as we enter into this digital age, we can lose sight that it very quickly can be flipped. The switch can be flipped at any moment. And somebody who doesn't have your best interests at heart, or at least doesn't present themselves as having your best interests at heart, can get behind the control booth and turn it on for whatever nefarious purpose that they might see fit. And so, in a way, it's kind of like the future that we most fear is most likely to manifest. But if we're brave and we use the tools that are at our disposal for the right things, then we can only hope for a positive outlook in the near future. But even in that video, you kind of have the beautification of chemtrails. Like literally, she like presses a button and the clouds seed right in front of her. So let's just review what they're trying to beautify here. You have, of course, the family all on the farm, living outside, which are all good things. That's exactly what I started off with about. You have the cool flying vehicle technology. You have here some cloud seeding, right? Wow! Oh, how useful! Just water your plants right there with the press of a button. Of course, you have what everybody longs for: the big Thanksgiving meal. Everybody, the old folk together, young folk, all gathered together in happiness. And AI can be seamlessly integrated in with this experience. Oh, how wonderful and how easy it might make life feel. And of course, this is going to be the carrot at the end of the stick. This is going to be the worm on the hook, which is this is how beautiful life could be. Unfortunately, the heart of mankind is deceitfully wicked above all things. And the unfortunate truth is that the people that actually are divvying out this technology have to convince the masses it's a good thing before they can ever crank it to the max and use it for their nefarious purposes. And this recent clip reminded me of how quickly something that we could support can be twisted and used for something nefarious. For example, we have the recent topic of people who are illegal aliens voting in our elections, and the need for voting that can't be tampered with, and the need to see if somebody's actually a citizen of the United States before they can vote in an election. And so we had this presented by Donald Trump, which is a biometric monitoring system that would basically allow them to use your biometrics to see if you qualify to vote. But then you could see how in the future this could obviously be twisted from something that sounds positive, right? Fair elections, and could in the future quickly be swapped to something like the mark of the beast.
The biometric entry-exit visa tracking system, which we need desperately. We will finally complete the biometric entry-exit visa tracking system, which we need desperately. We will finally complete the biometric entry-exit visa tracking system, which we need desperately.
Okay, so obviously we have a lot of people that would love this because it would allow for illegal immigration into the United States to be stifled, for people to not be able to vote in our elections that are not citizens. But also the amount of control and monitoring power that this hands into the elite is something to be cognizant about, to be aware of the power that this would give. And not only that, how this even ties into those who don't have a mark on their right hand or on their forehead not being able to buy or sell. How can that be implemented in the current state of the world when people can just kind of walk into a store willy-nilly? Well, a system that utilizes AI technology to have a database of individuals that are approved or disapproved becomes a quick reality when we start to implement things like this. So with that said, let me go over to this next topic, which is interesting. It's the topic of the Gulf of America, which is apparently the greatest thing Mexico has ever been given, according to this video. Let's see how this ties into the possible formation of the Amero.
Okay, so I'm going to post the information because I'm getting a lot of DMs. Most people wouldn't know by scrolling because I delete my posts after a few months. I just leave up other political things and stuff, but I have extensive information through the STEP program, my experience of global financing and global projects around the world concerning Eastern Europe. I've left a lot of information about this war and certain things like this. And there's just a lot of things going around right now about the Gulf of America. And so I'm going to give you information that is available for everyone, but people tend to make their own assumptions. So this is it really in a package, and Democrats, you should really pay attention because there's a lot in here. For some reason, President Trump doesn't release, which would benefit him, but you should educate yourself on the situation. In the Isthmus of Tehuantepec, Mexico, there is a giant project that is an alternative to the Panama Canal. And it's a rail system that connects the Pacific Ocean to the Atlantic Santa Cruz port. It is a $8 billion project just for this alternative. It's like a rail bridge which would eliminate the process of needing the Panama Canal. So in the art of the deal, Donald Trump makes a big fuss about the Panama Canal and taking it, and they go and they basically what they're going to do is they're going to give us their all. That's what he does. He breaks it down and then they fight and they give us their all. What do you got? Okay, this establishes the price. Mexico has not been able to get this project off the ground because it also sends a rail system all the way up the coast through ports of entry in the United States for a giant trillions of dollars, avoiding the Panama Canal and coming through this way right into the Gulf of America. 6 giant industrial stops all the way up, billions and billions of dollars. Mexico cannot get funding because they cannot guarantee the security for this project. What Donald Trump is doing is he's renaming it to the Gulf of America so that he can come in, do the thing on the border, which is going to shut down the reasons that South America is shipping people and drugs up Mexico into the United States. When there's nowhere to ship it to, they can bring security in. This enhances the price with the argument of the Panama Canal, where they're fighting about that. Trump can bring in security on an agreement with the Mexican president. This allows the World Bank to fund this operation. This operation brings in more money and more industry and jobs than anything Mexico has ever produced from the beginning of conception. This is an alliance going to be sponsored by the United States with the guarantee that this will replace the Panama Canal and bring in an extreme amount of money to both parties. We need security down there. We need to run that. We need to be in control of that so that Mexico can then further use this information and plant these stable compounds and bring in a massive amount of jobs and money and redo their entire country, which is the reason of the immigration. Like Kamala was supposed to go to the root of the cause, and everyone's like, Trump, what are we doing with these people? We're not just sending them back. There's a whole nother thing going on where he's planting ginormous seeds that will grow enormous fruit for this country to thrive and be an economic power of its own in joint with the United States, so people can start having their lives there and rebuilding it and making it more efficient where people don't even want to come here. So for the difference in what people think they know, okay, this project has already been permitted and submitted, okay? They need to bring security to the country to ensure that this rail system is not driving more drugs and more illegal crossings. It needs to be set up to detour all of the world's fluctuation of manufacturing and goods into the United States, would then enter right into the Gulf of America. Also bringing huge industry to Texas, Louisiana, Florida. It would make Mexico thrive. And in order to do that, we have to bring in insurance, which would be America, and they have stipulations. This country has to be ready to receive money from the World Bank, whether it's endorsed, sponsored, or secured by the United States. It is the largest change that this country, Mexico, will have ever gone through. And in 8 short years, it would change the whole dynamics of that country. And that helps America, because America would thrive, Mexico would thrive. You won't even recognize the country. So now we're partnering with our neighbors and we're helping them thrive on a level that nobody has ever seen. So the Gulf of America is the Gulf of America in assistance to helping out this country, Mexico. It's not a slap in their face. It's not taking something. It's giving them something. So with that, I yield back and let you do your own research on this, and you will see that there's a lot more going on. The argument with the Panama Canal, it's the art of the deal. This guy's a genius. Pay attention.
Very interesting. And of course, I wanted to read this comment along the side Crafty Grower Bear made. Remember the conspiracy of the North American Union? Am I showing my age? Where the USA, Mexico, and Canada become one. They eliminate the dollar and have the new money called the Amero. If Canada does become the 51st state, which rumor has it, it's well on its way, and this if they, don't give back their pornography they're withholding, like we covered in Tuesday's episode, and this Mexico project is successful, we'll be one step closer to the NWO, getting exactly what it's wanted all along. Or will we have a winning deal for both sides? I do wonder, though, why continue to create the wall if open borders are the ultimate goal through a union? Could it be the Hunger Games checkpoints would be real? And of course, we covered in our Tuesday live stream the possibility of an invasion of Panama. And to me, it sounds like this is another kind of element to that I wanted to present today, is somehow these choke points of international trade to get from the Atlantic to the Pacific, it has to be worked out. It has to be figured out. And so whether the U.S. invades Panama or they work out some kind of rail system with Mexico or whatever, either way, I think it's very important to pay attention to how these relationships are being brokered. And we see this developing stage here in the Americas.
It doesn't make any sense to me to have a rail system from the Pacific to the Gulf of America, because The boats would have to offload all of their goods off of these barges or whatever and put them on the trains. Then the train takes it across, and they have to take them off the trains and put them back onto the barges so that they can go ship them to wherever they need to ship them. Because not all traffic that goes through the canal is destined for America or Mexico. It could be destined to Europe, or it could be destined to South America or other places. The other thing, I mean, I understand what he's saying is that if you build something from Pacific to the Gulf of Mexico, in Mexico, he's saying theoretically that's going to create jobs in Mexico, make them not want to, I don't know, the illegal aliens, they would stay in Mexico and not come across the border. I'm not sure that is an absolute thing that's going to happen. I don't believe that's not going to keep them from coming into the United States. The other thing is if this is something that's feasible, why not build something from San Diego to, say, Houston, or whatever? We already have rail traffic from the West Coast to Houston or what have you.
It's not very good.
Not very good, but they could spend less money on really enforcing that. I mean, reinforcing it, making it better than what they could building a brand new thing in Mexico. So I don't know. Those are just things to think about.
And it also seems he was presenting it pendulant on Mexico getting their cartel issue under control. So you see a lot of interesting language since the Trump administration stepped into office, which was basically the closest war the U.S. is actually having is with the Mexican cartel. And so it seems to me that the guy was presenting the case that they're locking down the border, shutting down the ability for the cartel to traffic so that Mexico can get those guys under control. And if Mexico can become a safe area, then the U.S. is more willing to deal with them. And so an aspect of that is militarizing the border between the U.S. and Mexico, and that's somehow playing into the deals that Trump is making with the government. So it is interesting. I'm going to have to look further into what he was actually saying was proposed. I don't know if it was just a rail system. Perhaps it was some kind of other transitory thing from like a Mexico location where it would allow goods and services to pass from the side of Mexico on the Pacific to the Gulf of America. Because there's other locations down in the Gulf that are, I guess maybe I don't know if they're digging another canal or what they're thinking there, but
it would cost trillions of dollars to build a canal across that area. And the other thing that I would bring up, you're talking about cartels, the Mexican government and the law enforcement in Mexico and the military in Mexico is just so much infiltrated by the cartels that it would be not impossible, but really, really, really difficult to clean up.
Yeah, very interesting. Definitely an interesting perspective I hadn't heard before from that guy, which to me, honestly, it kind of sounds like it sounds a little better than us invading and having a war down in Panama to work out some kind of deal with Mexico. But you're right. Like, how does it make sense in terms of the infrastructure? But I digress. So just recently, some pretty strong storms passed through Central America, and I wanted to share this video of some strange activity that was witnessed during a live tornado watch in Mississippi. Very interesting footage. Watch this.
No.
Does anybody know if Brandon or Corey are out there?
Did you see that?
Yeah.
Bro. Come on, Max. You see that? They found it. Look at that. Look at that.
Set up in South Carolina.
No.
Does anybody know if Brandon or Corey are out there?
Did you see that?
Yeah. Bro.
I wonder if lightning
Come on,
hits
man.
a
You see
drone, if it would
found
fall
it.
out of the sky,
Look at that.
because that doesn't look
Look
like
at
a
that.
drone.
Set up.
Yeah, I thought that was very interesting, and I know the days leading up to the big storm was a lot of reports going out about uptake in chemtrails, and to me, that it's interesting because you often see that the seeding programs and the whatever those little radar blimps that are pushing out energy into the sky, they like upped their regularity leading up to that big storm. And just to show you guys the natural way versus the geo-engineered way, check this clip out. Yep. The geo-engineered way looks pretty bad compared to the natural way.
I think you're really going to like my
yeah,
history because I cover the whole history of chemtrails and how it's been happening since the 40s. It's crazy.
Ooh, I'm super stoked, and I'm glad I included this segment. What do you think that thing was in the sky during the tornado watch? That was really weird. It was like these rippling blue energy waves or something.
The only thing that I could think are drones, but at the same time, I don't know if drones could, be. I mean, if you strike a drone with lightning, like what happens? Does it fall straight to the ground? Like, does that even make sense?
Could be very unusual ball lightning.
Yeah, but that's too many.
True.
Those are too many in a row. They're like perfectly aligned. So I don't know. I think it's either a drone or something we can't explain for sure.
So, of course, all over the news is Elon Musk's recent rescue of some astronauts that have apparently been stranded for months and months on end. And so, just for posterity, I wanted to show the moment that they stepped out of their capsule. Check this out.
We can see dolphins actually who want to come and play with Dragon. Now, one of the fast boats there in place working to assist the recovery team member. It's incredible. I just love these views. We really see them even better in daytime, but just seeing the recovery team work in tandem to step through each operation. Spacecraft. Now, here on your screen, we can see dolphins actually who want to come and play with Dragon. Now, one of the fast boats there in place working to assist the recovery team member. It's incredible. I just love these views. We really see them even better in daytime, but just seeing the recovery team work in tandem to step through each operation. Spacecraft. Now, here on your screen, we can see dolphins actually.
Oh, fantastic. Dolphins. How amazing. So, yeah, of course, the narrative being these astronauts have been stranded up there for well beyond what they were supposed to be up there for. And there's a lot of conspiracies going around regarding a photo of them stepping out of the capsule with a tan and permed hair or whatever. And people have to be careful with the memes that they share around because, unfortunately, it was a before picture shared as an after picture. And when people just do a little bit of research, they can easily discredit what you're sharing about, oh, look, the lady looked totally fine, but you're sharing just a meme that somebody shared. But we do have to ask the question, what were these people doing for months on end? And obviously there has been proven deception in the ISS footage with green screens and wires. But there are there is something happening here, and there's a reason that this is being pushed onto the world stage. Could it be to show that Elon is the guy to take us in the space race all the way to Mars, and that way all of the public is convinced that it's totally cool for us to send billions and billions of dollars into the space hole, you know? So anyways, I know we've had a lot of interviews recently regarding biblical cosmology and debunking NASA deception, but this is definitely mainstream news, and a lot of people are going to be talking about it. So just be careful. Don't share memes hastily, because you're going to make yourself look stupid, but always be willing to question the official narrative. So this next clip is very important. We have escalating tensions that we covered earlier on Tuesday of how the Middle East is on the brink, and this next clip is a guy breaking down the situation, how everything very quickly could change, especially with the strikes that the U.S. is making in Yemen and what's happening in Syria. We need to be on alert. Check this video out.
News. I kind of didn't know if I should give it to you or not, but I don't think I've ever seen in few hours that many things happening at the same time. It's night here, so I don't want to wake up anyone here in the house, but so I'll be very brief, okay? I'll be very brief. And again, please share this, okay? So in the last few hours, let me explain what happened. Israel attacked multiple times in Lebanon against Hezbollah. Israel struck over 30 times in Syria against former Assad regime military bases that HTS, the current jihadists, are about to take over. So again, Syria and Lebanon are clashing right now, although they always say there is some agreement between them that they're killing each other as we speak. Okay. Iraq. The Iraqi Ministry of Defense announced that they received information that imminent Israeli strikes are going to take place on terrorist targets in Iraq. Iran has elevated its alertness to the maximum, and Iranian fighter jets, old but still fighter jets, are patrolling all across the skies of Iran right now. And the American Ministry or Department of Defense just announced 3 more carriers are on the way to the Middle East. I do not recall, and by the way, and I forgot to tell you, the best is that multiple US strikes in Yemen. So, you want to go over it? And this is just in the last few hours, okay? So in the last few hours, multiple attacks in Lebanon by Israel, multiple attacks in Syria by Israel, multiple attacks between Lebanon and Syria, multiple attacks by America in Yemen. Iraq is bracing for an Israeli strike. Iran is bracing for a US strike. And the American Department of Defense is sending 3 more aircraft carriers to the Middle East. Now tell me if you remember anything like that. And that's just the last few hours. Something big, and Iran understands from the words of President Trump today that it's time to either cut a deal where their nuclear program is completely dismantled, or there will be strikes. I want to remind you, folks, that the Iranians are afraid of Trump. Credible threats always make them do something. Non-credible threats make them laugh. When was a credible threat in the last few years? I'll tell you when. At least 3 times in the last 30, 40 years, there were credible threats that caused the Iranians to do something, dramatic. In 1980, hours, or maybe even during the inauguration of President Reagan, knowing that Reagan is not playing games, the Iranians released all the U.S. hostages from the U.S. embassy that they were locked up over 400 days. I think 54 diplomats. They were released when they knew something big is coming. That was 1980. In 1988, I believe. In 1988, I believe, the U.S. accidentally shut down an Iranian passenger plane, and the U.S. realized it was a mistake, but the Iranians thought it was not, and they immediately stopped the Iran-Iraq war and surrendered. That was a big thing. They thought that they're next, because the Americans said after Iraq comes Iran. And no, that was in that was at the time of the that was at the time of the war in Iraq. And the last time, in 2003, I believe, the Iranians stopped or suspended their military nuclear program because they were afraid of some American threats. But then when Obama was elected and they thought nothing's going to happen to us, in 2006 they resumed their military program for nuclear weapon. So 3 times when Iran thought there's a credible threat, they changed everything. Will Iran see in Donald Trump a credible threat? Well, today Trump was releasing a very interesting statement where he said that as far as he's concerned, whatever the Houthis are shooting, it's as if Iran shot it, because this is an Iranian weapon. So basically he's holding Iran responsible for any strike on US vessels. Now 3 aircraft carriers are on the way. Multiple strikes. In the last 2 hours alone, close to, I don't know, almost 100 Houthis were killed near Hodeidah on a strike on a missile factory. Quite a few leaders of the Houthis were killed in the last 48 hours. Credible threat. And Trump is doing that in the middle of the night in order to make it look even better, because when it's dark, the explosions are way more spectacular and seen. Folks, the Middle East is about to explode. Again, Israel is striking in Lebanon non-stop, striking in Syria non-stop. There are clashes between Lebanon and Syria themselves, strikes in Iran, and both the Iranians and the Iraqis are bracing for something big.
Okay, so there you have it. From this guy's testimony, something big is stirring in the Middle East, and they are preparing for something. And it's all happened just this week. Do you guys have any thoughts on that topic?
No. I mean, it's a lot to take in, you know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think it's very significant to pay attention as the world stage is shifted around with the Trump administration and the change between what Biden represented, which was a limp-wrist globalist style of American presidency, and now what the Trump administration is purporting to represent. and how it makes people jump to when real threats are brought forward in Iran. So with that said, we're going to get into this next clip, which is a very interesting breakdown and something that ties to why it could be that Israel is being redacted from the JFK files and the global cabal that is pulling the strings behind everything. Very interesting. Check out this breakdown of the deep state.
Is there a deep state? If so, what is it? Is it Larry Fink? Is it George Soros? Is it big oil? What is it, Pat?
So I brought Jim Jordan in, and I showed him a clip. I don't know if you've ever seen a white envelope clip. You ever seen a white envelope?
No.
Okay, so there's a white envelope video at George Bush Sr.'s funeral that gets passed down to everybody. Michelle and Barack Obama get it. Michelle opens it. You see Barack goes like this, goes like this. Hillary Clinton gets it. She opens the white envelope, goes like this, goes like this, goes like this. Okay, everybody, Biden's get it. And then comes Jeb Bush, his mom, and George Bush are standing here, and Jeb Bush is standing above his mom, and mother opens the envelope, and she goes like this. And then Jeb looks down, Jeb goes, and within half a second he flinches and he looks at her. So I said, Jim, what is in that white envelope? Jim Jordan was like, I've never seen this. I said, Jim, you've never seen this? I've never seen it. I said, so Jim, what is on that white envelope? It's not like you read a sentence. A sentence takes 3 seconds. Doom, doom, right?
Yeah.
He didn't do that. He just went boom, boom, half a second. What's in there? And Trump didn't get the envelope. What is in that envelope? And then, who gave that envelope? If Barack Obama received the envelope, that means you're not the boss. It's kind of like this.
Right.
Right? It's
right.
If somebody pays
of course
you.
He's not the boss.
No, he's
Who's
not.
the boss?
Who is the boss? So then who is the boss? Is it, when I had Trump on the podcast, I said, who is it? Is there a deep state? He said, it's an amorphous of lunatic, some word like that he used, right? So it's a group of, he talked about shift first, and he went through a few different names, right? Okay. But then at the end of the day, you have to also realize Clintons are worth a couple $100 million, say $500 million. Obama's are worth $100 to $200 million, let's just say. Biden's are worth, I don't know, $50 million, right? Bush's are worth, whatever, 40, 50, $100 million, right? They used to own the Rangers. Maybe they got some money, right? That's nothing.
Right.
That's not real money.
Right.
Soros is worth real money. Thinking those guys at BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard, they're worth real money. I'll give you a stat that's very, very weird that came to my attention. Do you know what country in the world has the most natural resources?
You're going to say Ukraine, aren't you?
It's not. Ukraine is actually, it's top 3 in many of them. But you know what country has the most natural resources of all combined together? It's $75 trillion. This can be validated. Anybody can Google it and go look at it. I want you to think about this before you say it. So what country are they painting as the worst country in the world today? You said one of them. You said one of them that's now painted as the best. They're great people. Let's keep giving them money. Right? Who is the enemy of that country?
Palestine?
No, Russia, right?
Russia?
Russia has $75 trillion of natural resources in their country. Guess who doesn't have access to that money? Nobody. Why not? Who's in the way? A guy named Putin. So who wants to get access to that $75 trillion of resources? Who? Probably BlackRock, probably State Street, probably Vanguard. They want to get in there. So how do you do it? Well, I interviewed a guy named, he wrote a book called The Economic Hitman. Can you Google what is it? It's something Perkins.
Yes, I know the book.
Perkins, Economic Hitman. He wrote this a while back.
Brilliant.
And
I read it years ago.
Yeah, I had him on the podcast, and I said, so what was your job? What's his, John Perkins. Okay, fascinating podcast. And I said, so what did you do? He says, it was very simple for me. I'd come to you if you're president or prime minister, and I would tell you, hey, I'm coming on behalf of a group of people. I can't disclose who it is. We're going to come and build 10, 20, $50 billion of businesses here, and we're going to help you out. And you have to do this. If you don't, we're going to destroy your economy.
Right.
And then he says most of the time, they would agree. I said, did anybody ever die? He says, a couple times people died. I said, let me get this straight. You want to side with a guy. You threatened me. He says, I threatened him. You threatened him. You walked away. And he dies? He says, yes. A couple times they died. Got it. So, Zelensky goes in. They replace the other guy, who's a bad guy. He comes in, an actor who played a star who was the president in the show that he was starring in, who knows how to shake his hips very well. We've seen some of those clips with him dressed very cute, the way he's dressed and the way he moves. So this guy comes in and the place gets bombed, and then all of a sudden JP Morgan and another bank is coming to rebuild Ukraine $400 billion? Huh. Got it. Can you imagine? Let's just say you ran a business. You've been running a business for a while, right? What's a big account? What if you come to me and I tell you, Jillian, we're about to give you 2,000 customers that on a monthly basis are going to pay you $100 a month. Whoa, that's attractive, right? Yeah. So that's pretty impressive, right? So they're coming in, $400 billion business. Who's financing it? They are. Great, $400 billion. It's a lot of money, right? So then they find that the country with the most natural resources is Russia, $75 trillion, and the guy in the way to get in is him. You mean to tell me I can't get through? No, we got to find a way to get rid of this guy. So maybe an economic hitman doesn't work. Maybe you got to find a different way. Maybe you got to find a way to divide him. I'm not telling you this guy's a saint. I'm not telling you he's a great guy. I'm not telling you he's a guy who should go out there and, trust everything that he's doing. But I am sitting there saying that if we're America first, and we should be America first, he's probably Russia first. Right. He should be Russia first, right? So some of these businesses have to get in there. Business models that we rarely talk about. Hotels. You and I go stay at a hotel. If you go at a hotel in Las Vegas, and you and I, what is the fastest way for us to find out if there's a lot of people staying at the hotel or not in Las Vegas? Through the parking lot, right? If you go in the parking lot and me and you, let's say at whatever, let's pick a time, at 7 o'clock in the morning, because people are sleeping from partying a lot or gambling a lot. If at 7 o'clock in the morning the parking lot is empty, that means the hotel's probably empty, right? How does a hotel make money? By making sure 95% of the rooms are rented. Their business model is for you and I to go and stay at their hotels. That's how they make their money.
Right.
What's a place that does haircuts? They got 8 chairs. What's their business model? Those 8 chairs being busy, right? A hair salon, 8 chairs being busy. How about a hospital? All the beds being busy.
I know that.
People got to be sick, right?
Sure.
To make money. Okay.
Right.
How about if you're selling weapons and jets and what's the business? We need wars, right? How about, it doesn't matter. How about banking? I need to lend. Who can I lend the most money to? Countries. And I can hold them hostage. These business models have been around for a while. When they talk about the story with Eisenhower at the end talking about the military-industrial complex,
seen that.
You know what's the most unique thing about the speech he gave? How come he didn't give the speech on the first day of being president? How come he was a 2-term president? Why don't you give it on your first year? How come in our second year? How about now your 4th year? Why don't you give it before you were done? Why'd you give it at the end? Or maybe because he was afraid that if he would have given it too early, something could have come after him. Then you given it at the end, so now we know, but you didn't give us enough stuff to know what's going on behind. Man, you should have revealed some of this stuff earlier. You were a general. It's not like you're just a president. You're a general in the military and a president. You have probably more intel to give us. But these things are real. These things are happening. And half the time when we're seeing somebody that they paint as the enemy, you have to kind of pump the brakes a little bit and step back and wait 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months and do your own due diligence to realize this guy really the bad guy or he's the bad guy? Who's the puppet in this equation? And who's the puppet master? But these money guys behind closed doors, they're moving everybody. Right. Politicians need their money. They use lobbyists, and they know countries that need their money to go in and rebuild. But it's not one person. Even when I ask Jim Jordan, or I ask Trump, or I ask Kevin McCarthy, what's your 2 weeks ago? It's not one person. It's a group of these guys behind closed doors.
Are they aligned, obviously, then?
Are they aligned?
In other words, Pat, if one of these guys, who's one of the most powerful in the world, has a different agenda than another one, right? If, let's say, Soros and Fink had differing agendas, it feels like everything, I know I sound insane. My poor mother, she looks at me and she's like, can you please just go back to...
Very interesting. Kind of breaking down how the political landscape of the world moves with financial incentive. And of course, they brought up the big money names like BlackRock and Vanguard. And this next clip might give us a little bit more insight as to why we were censored live in action for simply sharing an Israeli news segment, and why it is you must keep the name of Israel out of your mouth, apparently, as a media representative.
Kamala Harris's husband is Jewish. Joe Biden's cabinet is 66% Jewish. It's 91% Jewish if you include undersecretaries. Joe Biden's children all married Jews. Donald Trump's children, all but one, married Jews. Robert F. Kennedy's vice presidential selection had been married 3 times. All 3 of them were Jews, one of which was one of the co-founders of Google. Speaking of Google, the co-founders of that platform are Jewish. Almost all of the C-suite executives of that company are Jewish. Meta, which owns Facebook, Instagram, WeChat, Mark Zuckerberg is Jewish. I could play this game across essentially academia, where 7 of 8 of the Ivy League presidents are Jewish. I could look at the schools themselves, like Harvard, where 52% of the MBA grads are Jewish. I could do it across Fortune 500 companies, but I don't even have to, because BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard basically dictate what those companies do. Senior leadership of those 3 companies, in the case of BlackRock, is exclusively Jewish. But we could go across media, we could go across entertainment, we could go across almost any of these big sectors, both Republican and Democratic. We could do something similar in almost all of the Western world at this point, where Keir Starmer, his wife, and their family are Jewish. We could look down at the recently elected president of Mexico, of Argentina, of Venezuela, of Panama, of El Salvador. We could go on and on. They're all Jewish. In some places, they're presidents of nations where Jews are 1 in every 65,000 people. If you then look at things like the Federal Reserve, which was basically put in place almost exclusively by Jews, it's a pretty massive amount of control that's held by a small group of people. In nations where this happened, whether it was in Weimar Germany, whether it was in Russia under the Bolsheviks, the result was the erosion of the middle class, and in the case of the Bolsheviks, the mass genocide of tens of millions of people. But you could also look at the religious ideology behind Judaism, which it's supremacist in nature. Look at the Talmud. The Jews are essentially going to rule the world from an ethno-state and to lord over the Goy. If you're not allowed to ask these questions, what does it say about the politicians that are writing the laws, the tech platforms that are defining hateful conduct, and across pop culture, which has taught me that we're not allowed to have these conversations?
Not allowed to have this conversation is exactly why our live viewers went from 400 to 40 in 2 minutes as soon as we shared that news segment. And also just the connection between this and what I discussed in our last episode, episode 114. You guys go back and watch episode 114 and talk about how I break down the way that the cabal operates and the way that it dishes out transgression on mankind, so that we self-curse so that they can rise in power above us. Very, very interesting topic. Now, with that shared, we have one last video for you guys for this week, and it's an Alex Jones segment I think you'll enjoy. Check this out.
Trump needs to address the geoengineering program, because you could argue and debate the flying saucers and the UFOs and the UAPs and all that stuff, and then, you know, a lot made. There's clearly stuff that's in every culture and been recorded being here, and before there was advanced technology that was being seen, World War I, World War II. I mean, there's definitely stuff going on that's not human. Everybody knows that. But what's hands down a big, giant, secret government corporate project, we know the Nobel Prize that was won in '92 by the 2 scientists that had the idea to add aluminum dioxide, barium salt, strontium, and other things to jet fuel, just kerosene. When it goes out the jet engine, there's a bunch of patents. Just you can type in to X if you want, or anywhere, just patents for geoengineering using jet engines to aerosolize nuclei for weather modification. And just you'll there's hundreds of them going back into the 70s. And I was telling Greer this last week, remember? I was trying to get him to get on weather modification. He's like, yeah, but it's more important, the whole ET thing. And I go, I understand that's much bigger. But this is cut and dry. This is a window into the whole shadow, secret mad scientist system, and he agreed is what the ruling global system is. It's a cult of mad scientists. And, you know, I've talked a lot about this, but I keep meaning to get the research back together and do a report on something that Trump has not talked about and something he hasn't dealt with. I've just been so busy, I haven't gotten around to it in the last 56 days. Because I was sitting there on the morning of the inauguration, 57 days ago, and I was thinking, I ought to get the clip of the CIA director, John Brennan, right before Obama left office 8 years ago and change, saying, yeah, we got a big geoengineering program going. We keep it secret from the public because we got treaties. Other governments get mad. And of course, I've interviewed tons of experts. I'm an expert. So much of it's declassified. But there's a giant weather manipulation system going on with antennas on the ground and chemicals added to jet fuel. Everybody thinks it's in spray planes. And they do have big Department of Energy and Department of Defense and corporate geoengineering systems that actually spray masses of nuclei, aluminum dioxide, barium salts, strontium, other things out to form nuclei that form clouds. That's a very small part of it when they actually target a hurricane directly to control it or steer it or kill it or weaken it. Or they had that certified in '68, the Pentagon could do that. That was declassified in 2007. I interviewed Ben Livingston, the head of the weather weapon program, because I saw it was declassified. Fox News called him the day it broke, and he flew down from Lubbock and came on. 90-something years old, still super sharp. First guy to fly into hurricanes and typhoons at the end of, he was in World War II. He was in World War II flying into those big weather planes. But I'm digressing. Trump needs to address the geoengineering program. Because you can argue and debate the flying saucers and the UFOs and the UAPs and all that stuff. And then, you know, a lot of it's man-made. There's clearly stuff that's in every cult been recorded being here. And before there was advanced technology that was being seen, World War I, World War II. I mean, there's definitely stuff going on that's not human. Everybody knows that. But what's hands down a big, giant, secret government corporate project, we know the Nobel Prize that was won in '92 by the two scientists that had the idea to add aluminum dioxide, barium salt, strontium, and other things to jet fuel, just kerosene. When it goes out the jet engine, there's a bunch of patents. Just you can type in to X if you want or anywhere, just patents for geoengineering using jet engines to aerosolize nuclei for weather modification. And just you'll there's hundreds of them going back into the 70s. And then they just have the big kerosene makers, jet fuel makers. It's only a handful of companies are the main producers, and they under a Department of Energy classified project. We know about the project. We know the name. I've had all the different experts on, from Geoengineering Watch, you name it. And that's what's frustrating is it's there, but the government goes, there's no chemtrails. Well, it'd be like, you know, somebody had a 57 Chevy that was all dolled up. You said, man, there's a lot of hoopties at this car show, or whatever they call those fancy cars. And they go, this isn't a hoopty, it's a 57 Chevy. They use the fact that chemtrail is the slang, and they go, there's no chemtrailing projects. Oh, but there are geoengineering projects. And so, like I've been saying here the last week, I'm just assessing the broadcast. We're overall doing a great job covering the latest breaking news, breaking down what's coming next with extreme accuracy. But it's also important, so we have a lot of new people tuning in all the time, millions a day, to give people some background and context about what's going on and happening. And if you're not 50 years old like I am or older, you know, people 25, 30 years old have never lived in the United States where it's the worst. It's all over the world now, spreading. They admit the skies are almost 30% darker than they were in the early 90s. That when I was a child, and until the mid 90s when the project launched, you would only see condensation trails in the winter and up at high altitude, because the tip of the wings would create, sometimes if there was some moisture, condensation over the edges to form a larger nuclei of water, or just energy, static, can then make water form. And then that makes bigger droplets, then bigger droplets come together, and that's how you get clouds, and the clouds get thick, and the nuclei gets big, and the droplets get bigger, and you get rain. And if it's cold, you get snow and sleet and hail. We all know that, okay? And And I'm glad we're showing this footage, because every time you hear about weather modification, they show some small ground units. They show some small private companies doing it, for ski resorts to get it to snow. But that's not 1/10 of 1% of it, okay? That's not what's doing the geoengineering. That has zero to do with it, zero. What's doing it is the jet fuel that is put in the passenger planes. So going back to the early 90s when the Nobel Prize, you can look it up, scientists win Nobel Prize for geoengineering plan to spray sunscreen in the atmosphere to protect from global warming. That was the headlines for it. I forget the exact Nobel Prize name, but you can look it up. And then by 95, it went operational, because I'd just been on the air and just getting a local radio show. I was on Access TV. And by 96, I had these callers going, I'm a meteorologist, I'd like to come on the show. And they were. And I'm an engineer, I'd like to come on the show. We just put Doppler radar in under a Department of Energy project, and it's got 10 times the power it should have. And I was talking to the main engineer, and he said it's for a classified weather program where they ionize the nuclei and cause clouds. That's another way. So it's antennas, and you think of Doppler radar everywhere. Oh, that tells you about a tornado, or that's the secondary use. It's a Department of Energy through NOAA subgroup weather control project. So you've got the ground-based systems that can do it, and it's public in China and Saudi Arabia, Dubai, and Qatar. You pull up their newscasts, they have weather control bureaus in the government, and they show the antennas and the planes and, how they do it all. And, of course, it's all based off what HAARP's been doing for 60 years up in Alaska, and HAARP's just one system. The U.S. has dozens of these big floating oil rig platforms that have got HAARP systems on them to control what's happening out at sea.
All right. For the sake of leaving something for Jeremiah's history segment, I'm going to go ahead and stop Alex Jones there, because I think it's going to be really great that we just have an all-encapsulating episode today, breaking into both the history of chemtrails and what's going on currently. But with that said, that's all the news for this week, guys. Please make sure to drop a like and a comment. And if you guys are still interested in getting a copy of Tribe the Game, jump over to tribethegame.net, and you can check out my board game there. Just have a few copies left, and I'm saving up those proceeds to then buy my next bulk order of games for everybody to get one at home. So anyways, Jeremiah, that's all. So hope you guys enjoyed.
Awesome. Thank you, Jake, for another great current news as always. And now a quick look at the Babylon Rising bookstore.
Check out our new and improved BabylonRisingBooks.com, where you can get Rob Skiba's books, bundles, DVDs, DVD-ROMs, videos, and so much more. You can even get Sheila and Jeremiah's books, so check it out now.
We also have the refraction kits that you guys can get to prove that the Earth is flat from the privacy of your living room, and all that good stuff. My dad's amazing work, and it's about that time for an all-new Opas Corner. Take it away, Opa. Hold around.
Mein Hut, der hat 3 Ecken. 3 Ecken hat mein Hut. Und hat nicht 3 Ecken, dann ist es nicht mein Hut.
The strange, the bizarre, the unexpected. These are the kinds of subjects a man named Robert L. Ripley challenged us to
believe it or not.
Believe it or not, you.
Wally, believe it or not.
Believe it or not.
Believe it! You're a loony.
No number before 1000 contains the letter A. Believe it or not. The Colosseum in Rome was lined with sand to absorb blood. The Latin word for sand, harina, gives rise to the modern term arena. Believe it or not. The word tire originates from the term attire, because a wheel with a tire is a dressed wheel. The wheels on the bus go round and round. Believe it or not. Over a period of 45 years, Beethoven composed a total of 722 pieces of music. Ta-da! Believe it or not. During the winter, crows congregate to sleep in communal roosts, numbering from a few hundred birds to over 1 million. Now that's a murder of crows. Believe it or not. The manila folder is named after the abaca plant, or manila hemp, whose fibers give it its yellow-brown color. Believe it or not. In ancient Rome, graffiti was an accepted way to show political support or to criticize leaders, serving as a vibrant form of public expression. Believe it or not. Baby boomers are the richest generation in history. Where's my loot? Believe it or not. Millennials are the most educated and worst paid generation. Taxman. Believe it or not. The Amsterdam Duck Store in the Netherlands sells nothing but rubber ducks, with hundreds of options ranging from doctors to ninjas and more. Quack, quack. Believe it or not. Ironically, the Austrian town of Rothenegg is famous for the quality of its fresh mountain air. Believe it or not. The Mutter Museum in Philadelphia has 46 microscope slides containing slices of Albert Einstein's brain on display. Believe it or not. Mr. Fred Rogers poured the wax for the 100 billionth Crayola crayon. Can I have the yellow, please? Believe it or not.
Won't you be my neighbor?
In the late 1950s, gas stations across the U.S. had jump centers where kids could hop on trampolines while their parents filled up the tank. Believe it or not. When composer Albert von Tilzer and lyricist Jack Norwood wrote the song Take Me Out to the Ball Game, neither of them had ever gone to a baseball game. Play ball. Believe it or not. I busted a mirror and got 7 years bad luck. But my lawyer thinks he can get me 5. If you saw a heat wave, would you wave back? When I die, I'm leaving my body to science fiction. Why don't they make the whole plane out of that black box stuff? All those who believe in psychokinesis, raise my hand. I went to the museum where they had all the heads and arms from the statues in all the other museums. I'm going to get an MRI to find out whether or not I have claustrophobia. Okay, what's the speed of dark? I invented the cordless extension cord. I wrote a few children's books. Well, not on purpose. I've had amnesia for as long as I can remember. My dog is a paranoid retriever. He brings back everything because he's not sure what I threw him. I was at a grocery store the other day, and I saw this guy pushing this long line of shopping carts, and I yelled to him, "Hey, somebody else might want to use one of those." I had a dream that I was robbed. When I woke up, everything in my apartment had been replaced by an exact duplicate. A friend told me about a new business idea selling planes without wings. I said it would never take off. Scene from the movie Die Hard. Looking for your eggs, Easter Bunny? We took all of them. Huh. I got news for you, pal. I don't keep all my eggs in one basket. Did I forget to lock the door? Did I forget to drag my butt across the carpet? Oh, that makes sense. I was wondering why the police would possibly try to summon me. You animal! This is all your fault! You did this to me! Don't even think of coming in here! Wow! What's up with Mom? She's having a cow. Mom said no sitting on the edge, Wayne. Squeaky toys. Me.
It's like Roxy.
Michael, use your words. What do you say when someone takes your truck? It's my truck, head. Peep pressure. I think I'll pass on the microwave challenge. Come on, it's cool. Everyone's doing it. The Predator Primer. See Dick run. See Jane run. Run, run, run. See the wolves chase Dick and Jane. Chase, chase, chase. Don't you think an inner tube is a rather odd last request? Zoo staff. You know, Ned, you're my best friend, and I just gotta tell someone. It's time I come out of the closet and stop living this lie. I hate animals. What? No tartar sauce? You'd forget your own head if it wasn't bolted on. Wait, this is 327 Central, not Center. Gesundheit. Circa 1500 AD, horses are introduced to America. Michelangelo as a child. Why can't he draweth upon thy walls like thine other toddlers? First that Creighton Foster, and now that jerk Cummings had instantly evaporated. I tell you, Ms. Goodman, without a doubt, I'm looking at an authentic, full-fledged wishing star. Wellington held out some beads and other trinkets, but the islanders had sent their fiercest lawyers, some of whom were chanting, "Sue him! Sue him!" So, in general relativistic sense, we find that the dynamic friction of the tensor light cone is actually negative, creating a local convergence of photons, which causes the stars at night to be big and bright, especially here, deep in the heart of Texas. Well, Red Cloud, it just so happens I did go ask the chief. A bear claw necklace is a symbol of honor. A Grizzly Adams fingernail necklace is not. Well, looks like the bank's been hit again. Well, no hurry. We'll take the big horse. Polly want a cracker? Polly want a cracker? Pretty bird. Harry, don't shoot. Pretty bird. I admit, this discovery does seem to support the asteroid theory. Dog realtor. And here is a spacious one-bedroom, one hydrant. Nobody move. The nurse is going to call my cell phone. History's first peace talks end badly. Down low, too slow. That not funny. War back on. I don't know, Marge. Looks kinda tacky to me. I'm totally lost in your eyes. Not that lost. Sorry. Okay, the sanatorium's on its way over. All we gotta do now is start talking to her. For sale, 3-in-1. Tornado, earthquake, nuclear bomb shelter. And that concludes another Opas Corner. Opas Corner is now available on my own YouTube channel. Like, share, and subscribe.
Thank you, Opa, for another great Opas Corner. Now, a quick word from our friend JJ.
Finally here at a very special location. Skiba News Nation has had a long-time sponsor, and I'm happy to be here in person at JJ's CBD Hemp Shop. What's up, bro?
Hey, welcome to Family Ties Apothecary. Started a brick and mortar. I do everything myself and grow all the hemp that I make in my rub, and from start to finish, farm to bottle.
Let's go get one of JJ's special drinks.
The best. Small batch kombucha, lemonade, or apple cider drinks that we mix with our CBD. We have water soluble drinks where you can have a drink and not have to have alcohol in it and have a good time.
Now guys, go visit JJ's shop if you're up here in Beaver Dam, Wisconsin.
Health advocacy line that have a specialist here at 920-219-9169. If you guys want to call, we can address your ailments and I can recommend things to help you out. And that would be great. Look forward to hearing from you guys.
Now, I know you guys can't see, but right off camera is my little Charlie. He almost stepped in the frame. Oh, we got a cat cam, Charlie. We got a cat cam. Cat cam. Cat cam. Cat cam. Look at the camera. Look at the camera. Cat cam. He's a good boy. Cat cam. Cat cam. Ow. Cat cam. Cat cam. Cat cam. Don't be like that. Those are love kisses, not bites. Okay, it's time for an all-new History's Mysteries. He's a good boy. Not biting me. So this week for History's Mysteries, we're going to be talking about the long history of chemtrails. And I mean, would you believe me if I told you the first time that it was, talked about on a mass scale was during Woodstock, of all places. And it's been happening way before that. But let's go ahead and play this first clip so we have a better understanding of where we're going to be going throughout this History's Mysteries. So check this out.
Woodstock 1969 is the peak of America's counterculture movement. Over 400,000 people gathered for what's supposed to be a celebration of peace, love, and music. 400,000 people who oppose America's war in Vietnam. 400,000 people who think the government needs to change. 400,000 people who won't be voting for Richard Nixon in the next election. Woodstock is the biggest gathering of anti-war activists America had ever seen. But suddenly, the clouds got darker. A powerful downpour covers the entire festival ground in water. The fields turn into mud pools. People are uncomfortable, some get injured, and some decide it's better just to go home. And within just a few hours, a music festival that could have created the kind of unity and message that could change American history forever descended into utter chaos. But the interesting thing was, just before the downpour, some festival goers had noticed something weird. There were planes flying above the festival grounds, emitting strange smoke into the storm clouds. As one Woodstock attendee said to a reporter, "I got something to say. I want to know how come the fascist pigs have been seeding the clouds. We could see the airplanes going over twice while all the smoke coming out of them seeding the clouds. Why doesn't the media report that stuff to the people? Could it be that the government had really made it rain? Were those planes up there seeding the clouds to make the rain even worse, in hopes that it would bring the festival to an end? Obviously not, right? There's no way the government can control the weather. I mean, you're telling me the government sent planes up, and these planes poured some kind of smoke into the clouds to make it rain? You're saying the government was trying to play God? That definitely doesn't sound like something they would do. But in reality, what these festival goers thought happened at Woodstock was not just some baseless theory. It was a very real possibility. Since the early 1940s, the American government had been actively and openly experimenting with weather control, and they haven't tried to hide it. And back when Woodstock happened, the government was actually testing its cloud seeding abilities all over the world. Cloud seeding was not and never has been just a baseless theory. It's a well-documented practice. So could Woodstock have been a target? Well, it makes sense if it was. Woodstock was everything the government was afraid of: anti-war activism, rebellion, and unity. If Woodstock was a total success, it would prove to the world that those hippies could actually be right, that maybe we could come together and create change. And that was a direct threat to those in power. Considering all of this, why wouldn't have Woodstock been a target? But the problem for the government was, if they just sent in police or soldiers to break it up, well, that would just prove the point Woodstock was trying to make. But if the festival simply just shut down because of an unnatural amount of rain that made the festival grounds dangerous and unusable, well, no one would ever bat an eye at that. And it wouldn't have been the first or last time the US government used weather control for its own benefits. From Vietnam to Florida, weather control or weather modification has always been a huge interest to governments all over the world. We've seen floods in Dubai, snow in Saudi Arabia, hurricanes in the US that seem to intensify out of nowhere. All natural disasters according to the government. And sure, many of them are probably natural, but what if some of them aren't? What if some of them are a direct result of weather control experiments? The kind of weather control experiments the governments of these countries are doing wide in the open. And if they're already doing this out in the open, how much more are they doing in secret? How far have they pushed this technology in secret? And what happens when they push Mother Nature too far? The idea that humans can control weather is nothing new, and people have been trying to do it since the beginning of humanity. In the 1500s, they rang church bells during storms to drive off the demons in the clouds that were responsible for thunder, lightning, and hail. Over the next few centuries, so many bell ringers died from lightning strikes that they eventually switched from bells to gunfire. But then in the 1800s, people thought that the sound and force of cannons might be enough to break up the storms. So they built giant hail cannons that fired directly into storm clouds. Unfortunately, like the bells, the cannons killed a lot more people than any storm would have. Falling cannonballs and malfunctioning cannons that exploded on the ground killed hundreds of bystanders over the years. Still, so many people believed in the storm blasting method that in some places they kept shooting their hail cannons well into the 1900s. And the logic made sense for the times. If those clouds are what's causing the storms, if we broke up the clouds with cannonballs, maybe we'll stop it. And it wasn't long before real scientists hopped on this weather control bandwagon, and they started looking for methods that were more rooted in reality and less in superstition. And that's where James P. Espy, also known as the Storm King, came in. In the 1830s, James Espy was one of the first scientists to figure out how clouds are formed. He expanded this theory to cover the creation of storms too, and even though he was later proven wrong about the storm thing, not the cloud thing, this was the first time anyone had offered a better explanation for storms and clouds than that evil demons created them. As part of his research, Espy published a book called The Philosophy of Storms, and in it, he suggested that if you burned parts of the Appalachian forest, it would create artificial rain during a drought. He believed that the warm air and change in air pressure would force clouds to make rain. Even though his theory was very wrong, it was the first time someone had taken a scientific approach to trying to modify the weather. And it was the first time anyone in the world openly spoke about controlling the weather to the point where you could create rain on demand. Over the next century, very few scientists actually gave much thought to the whole weather control thing, but it didn't entirely disappear. Every now and then someone would come up with a theory or experiment, but nothing ever really panned out until the 1940s. That's when two men working for General Electric, Vincent J. Schaefer and Irving Langmuir, had discovered how to seed clouds to make them produce snow or rain. Basically, cloud seeding just means pouring chemicals directly into rain clouds to force them to drop their rain on command. And they did this by using dry ice to freeze water droplets in specific clouds. These droplets would become heavier and eventually fall as rain or snow. Soon enough, they found that silver iodide, a gray powder, was even better at making clouds turn into rain. This new discovery had two clear benefits. One, it could force certain clouds to produce rain immediately, wherever and whenever they wanted them to. And two, if you didn't want it to rain somewhere, you could see clouds before they reached that location, so they would dump their rain right then and there. Schaefer and Langmuir had literally figured out how to control the weather. Civilizations rise and fall based on weather alone, and with enough time and money, one could make a barren wasteland flourish. One could even flood your enemy. Those who figured out how to control the weather could be more powerful than Mother Nature herself. And whenever that sort of power is available, it doesn't take long for the government to get involved.
So chemtrails and cloud seeding has been around since the 1940s, and as that clip was playing, I was thinking, you know, how many things from the 1940s did people do, like asbestos, you know, stuff like that, putting stuff in places that they shouldn't be, and they cause long-term effects, you know? And I mean, it just goes to show that they may not have known that they were hurting the community at the time, but now we know, and we're trying to make our voices heard, and we all are made to sound crazy when we see it. and I mean, they've been doing it for a long time. So was Woodstock targeted? I mean, that's a pretty interesting theory. I mean, I think it very much could have been. So there's so much more to get into. So let's get into this next clip, which I call Project Cirrus. Cyrus? We'll figure it out.
push to explore weather control began as a well-meaning way to save or improve people's lives, but it quickly turned into something much darker. In 1947, the US government partnered with General Electric to figure out how they could use cloud seeding to modify a hurricane. The idea was that dropping dry ice into a hurricane while it was still out at sea could disrupt its structure, weaken its winds, and basically make it run out before it hit land. If it worked, there would be a guaranteed way to get rid of hurricanes before they cause any damage, and that could potentially save hundreds of thousands of lives. So the government created Project Cirrus and started figuring out how they could actually test something like this. Right from the start, the scientists involved knew things could go really wrong if they didn't carry out these experiments the right way. They would have to be extremely careful about the hurricane they chose to seed, and they would have to pick one that wasn't going anywhere near land. And on October 13, 1947, they finally got their chance. For 4 days, scientists had carefully monitored a medium-sized cyclone that formed in the southern part of the Caribbean Sea. In the first few days after forming, the storm hit Cuba with minimal damage. Following its path, it looked like the cyclone was heading out to sea, far away from anything it could cause damage to. It was a good storm to use for Project Cyrus's first experiments. So on October 13th, a B-17 bomber plane flew into the cyclone and dropped 80 kilograms of crushed dry ice directly into the eye of the storm. And all that was left to do was to wait and watch. If the experiment worked, the cyclone would temporarily get more intense before dissipating soon afterwards. And at first, everything seemed to be going as planned. The storm got worse, turning into a full-blown hurricane, but that was what everyone expected. What no one saw coming though was that within hours of that cloud seeding, the cyclone turned hurricane made an abrupt change in direction, heading directly towards the mainland. On October 15th, it made landfall, slamming into Savannah, Georgia, before moving into South Florida, causing some of the worst flooding the region had ever seen. In total, the hurricane cost more than $3 million in damage, or over $42 million in today's money. People were furious. The government had not hidden their interest in cloud seeding, but they refused to admit that they had seeded that hurricane that hit Florida and Georgia. But it didn't matter though. Soon enough, local newspapers started speculating that the government's meddling had caused this disaster. One Miami weatherman went so far as to claim the hurricane wasn't just an act of God, but instead it was a low Yankee trick. If Project Cirrus hadn't seeded the cyclone, it may have never turned into a hurricane or changed its course towards the mainland. And in good old government fashion, the people in charge of Project Cirrus stayed completely silent. No one has said a word about whether the cyclone had been seeded until 12 years later. No one except Irving Langmuir, the guy who originally discovered cloud seeding, and who also happened to be a Nobel Prize winner for chemistry. According to him, the hurricane's track had been directly influenced by human intervention. It also didn't help that General Electric immediately backed out of Project Cirrus, worried about the possible lawsuits they would face for interfering in storms that caused so much damage. But even though everyone else was on damage control, the government still refused to admit that they had anything to do with what happened to the hurricane, that there was nothing to be suspicious about. But still, people wouldn't stop talking about it. And with so much publicity and suspicion, Project Cirrus became a much bigger liability than it was worth, and eventually it was shut down. But the idea didn't die. Instead, the government waited for everyone to forget about Project Cirrus and the damage it may or may not have caused, and in 1962, it relaunched the program under a brand new name, Project Storm Fury. It was 15 years later, better funded, and with better science to back it up. And for the next 20 years, the government carried out dozens of seeding experiments, this time using silver iodide instead of dry ice. And even though these experiments did seem to affect hurricanes and sometimes even weaken them, it didn't seem like cloud seeding had a strong or clear enough effect to make the project worthwhile. And then there were the risks. What if seeding a storm made it more unpredictable or caused unintended damage? The memory of Project Cirrus was still fresh in the government's mind, and there was no way it could handle another disaster like that. So in 1983, after years of failing to achieve anything, Project Storm Fury was quietly cancelled in hopes the public would forget all about it. It was obvious the government wanted as little publicity around cloud seeding as possible. But why? Well, while everyone was suspiciously watching Project Storm Fury to see what chaos it would cause, the US government had found another very different use for cloud seeding, a use that it would much rather keep secrets.
So in 1947, Project Cirrus, I hope I'm saying it right, was when they first tried controlling the weather. And, you know, maybe it was for good intentions, like they say, but just like AI, it kind of has a tie with it. Like, in the wrong hands, it could be used nefariously, but in good hands, maybe they could save lives. Who knows? Maybe that's where it all came from. But, I mean, now look at it. So now we're going to be getting into the next clip, which is called Project Popeye, and I can pronounce that one right. So.
So you're a communist soldier in Vietnam in the late 1960s. You've grown used to the rhythm of the monsoon season. Every year heavy rain pours through the jungle, and it makes everything wet, slippery, and miserable. Despite this, every year's monsoon season is predictable. You know what to expect, you know how to prepare, but suddenly something changes. The storms you know so well become fiercer and more relentless. More rain pours down than you've ever seen in your life. Some say it's just a rainier year than the ones you're used to, but you know that something isn't right. Because this new heavy rain isn't happening all over Vietnam. No, this new heavy rain is only happening in places that are strategically important to the Communist Army. The Ho Chi Minh Trail, which transports all your weapons and supplies, has turned into a death trap of landslides and flooding, and all of your anti-aircraft missile launch sites seem to be hit the hardest, blocking them from shooting down planes. Even weirder, it seems like every time there's a really heavy rainstorm, the Americans benefit from it somehow. Either the rain breaks up protests against the capitalist side, or the rain stops just as the Americans start their bombing campaigns. For someone who spent their entire life in Vietnam, it all feels so unnatural, almost targeted, and you're not alone. In the late 1960s, this strange weather seemed like a cruel twist of fate to millions of Vietnamese soldiers and civilians. But it wasn't fate. It wasn't an accident. It was a deliberate act of war carried out by the United States. You see, the US had been trying to destroy the Ho Chi Minh Trail for years with no luck. Conventional bombing just wasn't doing the trick, but that's when they got a brilliant idea. Why not seed the monsoon rain clouds above the trail? The extreme rainfall would make it too dangerous for anyone to use, and on top of that, rainfall was much more PR friendly than bombs. In the words of one government official back then, what's worse, dropping bombs or rain? The government called this little project Operation Popeye, and it was so important to the American war effort in Vietnam, and it was so controversial for its time, that when White House officials were asked about it, they just flat out replied, "This is one of those things where no one is going to say anything." It started in 1967, where every monsoon season, American planes would fly over the targeted regions and release silver iodide into the clouds. Their cloud seeding worked so well that they made it their goal to extend every monsoon season by up to 45 days, softening the roads, washing away bridges, and causing landslides wherever they needed them. Between 1967 and 1972, the US carried out more than 2,600 cloud seeding operations over Laos and Vietnam. In some cases, planes would fly out twice a day to seed clouds above a single target, and it worked. The cloud seeding flooded roads and broke down communications between communist soldiers without anyone ever realizing that the Americans were the ones behind it. Operation Popeye went as far as to develop a chemical that could even produce acidic rainfall aimed at destroying the enemy's radar equipment. For 5 years, America played God with Vietnam, creating and stopping rain as it saw fit. And thanks to the secrecy around Operation Popeye, it took 5 years for the public to even catch a whiff of these specifics. And not even the White House could 100% agree whether it was the right thing to do. One official was worried that rainmaking might violate what we consider the general rule of thumb of an illegal weapon of war, something that would cause unusual suffering or disproportionate damage, which is saying a lot considering that the US used Agent Orange in Vietnam around the same time. And if Agent Orange was fine, but cloud seeding was potentially illegal, just how bad did the cloud seeding get? And how much damage did it cause? We may never know. Even after the operation was exposed, very little information about it was ever released. We may never even know the true extent of the cloud seeding missions. The government was doing everything it could to keep it all a secret, but eventually some of the truth came out. In 1971, journalists started reporting on rumors of cloud seeding in Vietnam. They followed these rumors like breadcrumbs until the truth was finally revealed and exposed in a huge article published by the New York Times. And this was in the 1970s, which brings us back to the original question of this video. The US government was using cloud seeding as a weapon between 1967 and 1972. The disaster at Woodstock happened in 1969, at the height of America's little cloud seeding operation. Considering that, what are the chances that those guys we showed you at the beginning of the video were onto something? Think about it, the day the festival started, there was zero sign of rain. It was a warm, sunny August day, when suddenly, the few clouds that had gathered turned dark and stormy, before pouring down more rain than anyone in the area had seen in years. Isn't it weird that the rain continued for the entire weekend, disrupting the festival from start to end? The people who attended Woodstock were some of the most outspoken against the war in Vietnam. The entire festival was pretty much based on anti-war sentiments. It was a thorn in the government's side, an annoying headache that was at risk of turning into something much bigger. So why wouldn't the government use cloud seeding to put a damper on the festival? Either way, the secret was out. By 1972, everyone knew the US government had the ability to control the rain. Everyone realized just how much power that gave them, and everyone knew it was time to do something about it.
So this was a good example of them using it for the wrong reasons, Operation Popeye or Project Popeye, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, it's just so intense and so crazy that, you know, people try to make the ones that say that they're chemtrails out to be conspiracy theorists when it seems like everybody's known about it this whole time, right? So let's get into this next clip. Make mud, not war. That's what I call it. So check it out.
Imagine a world where you could control your enemy's weather, like America did in Vietnam. You could bring down months of endless rain, flooding their roads, destroying their supply chains, and injuring or even killing their people. Crops would rot in the fields, causing food shortages, and the country's entire focus would completely shift from making war to dealing with a natural disaster back home. Or you could make the opposite happen. You could see clouds long before they reach your enemy's land, plunging your enemy into a drought that dries up their rivers, that kills their crops. See, in ancient times, armies would lay siege to cities, slowly starving the people inside until the king surrendered. Now, the same thing would be possible on a much bigger, much more deadly scale. And what if, like people suspected with Project Cirrus, the government could control the power and course of hurricanes? Imagine a world where hurricanes and cyclones mysteriously shift the course, slamming into major cities, destroying infrastructure, and plunging millions of people into chaos. Weaponizing the weather had the potential to turn warfare into something much more destructive than bombs or bullets. And by the early 1970s, everyone knew it. You see, while people who worry about weather control today are called crazy conspiracy theorists, in the 1970s, weather modification as a weapon of war was a harsh reality. It was such a real threat that the UN proposed a treaty that banned weather control as a weapon all the way back in 1976. Thanks to massive pressure from politicians and the people, even America sat down to talk about making weather modification an illegal weapon. The treaty, called the Environmental Modification Convention, or ENMA, was signed by 48 countries. And basically, it banned military use of environmental modification techniques that would cause widespread, long-lasting, or severe damage. Which raises the question, if weather control isn't real, if it's impossible to control the weather or use it to your advantage, why would there need to be a treaty that bans it? And before America was forced into signing the treaty, it was pouring millions into projects to see just how far they could take it. And one of those projects was Nile Blue, which tried to create a computerized model of the world's climate as a way to manipulate weather patterns on a global scale. In their opinion, controlling the weather would allow America to disrupt the economy and social structure of any small country by forcing it into famine or at least extreme hardship. Add the Cold War into the mix, and imagine a world where there wasn't just a nuclear war to worry about, but wide-scale weather warfare as well. Just think about it, it took decades for the Soviets and Americans to agree that maybe blowing each other up with nuclear bombs was a bit extreme, but weaponized weather? They both agreed to hit the brakes after less than 10 years. That's how powerful and dangerous weather control was and still is. But even then, this ENMA treaty wasn't perfect. It banned large-scale use of weather control as a weapon, but smaller localized manipulations of the weather weren't completely ruled out. So even though Russia and America couldn't flood each other anymore, using weather modification as a weapon here and there is still technically allowed. And even today, weather modification on its own without the weaponizing part is being used by more countries than you may expect.
Now, isn't that crazy? Couldn't they have brought rain to places like California and the places that are on fire? I mean, that's just so insane to me, but they're using it for whatever purposes they please. So before I get your opinions, you, Jake and Opa, before I get y'all's opinions, I want to play this last clip that involves this, weather modification and chemtrails topic. And I call this clip Make It Rain. So check this last clip out.
The United Arab Emirates, or UAE, is one of the driest countries on Earth. Unlike other countries like Egypt and Libya, the UAE has no permanent rivers or lakes. That's why the country has to import over 85% of its food. Even though the UAE may be rich enough to afford these imports, having to import all your food is a major risk. On top of that, every year hundreds of thousands of people move into the country, massively increasing the demand for food. So finding a way to grow its own food was a big deal for the UAE government. But in order to make that happen though, they would need rain. They needed rain for the farms, they needed rain to keep the taps on, which is where cloud seeding came in. Since the 2000s, the UAE has launched hundreds of cloud seeding missions every year, near its mountainous border with Oman. Their goal? To boost the country's water reservoirs and to keep its cities and farms from running dry. And it's working, kind of. Depending on conditions, cloud seeding can boost rainfall by 10 to 30%. And sure, that might not sound like that much, but to them, every drop counts. And they've been taking it even further. In 2015, they launched the Research Program for Rain Enhancement Science, offering grants to scientists around the world to push the technology even further. They've even teamed up with NASA to figure out how they can make more rain. So as you can see, they're not trying to hide the fact that they're cloud seeding. They're not doing it in secrets. They've been cloud seeding for decades and reaping the benefits. And it's not just the UAE. There's a much bigger, much more well-known country that also used weather control not too long ago. In July 2001, China celebrated a huge victory. It had won the bid to host the 2008 Summer Olympics. And this wasn't just about sports. For China, it was a chance to finally prove to the world that it was a modern, friendly, successful country. Billions of dollars were poured into new infrastructure, and everything was planned down to the last detail to make sure the event was completely unforgettable. But there was just one problem: Beijing's weather. The Olympics were scheduled for August, in the middle of the region's rainy season, and rainstorms during the games would wreak havoc to the live performances. And it would just be not a good experience, which is where the Beijing Weather Modification Office came in. The Beijing Weather Modification Office is part of a national weather control program that is supposed to be the biggest in the world, and they have been working on modifying the weather for decades, with some pretty interesting results. In 2006, a sandstorm hit Beijing, covering the entire city in dust. In response, the Weather Modification Office launched a massive cloud seeding project to wash away the sand. This resulted in the heaviest rain the city has seen the entire season, and it wasn't just useful in emergencies. In 1997, as a little gift to the people of Beijing, the office seeded the clouds to bring down even more snow to cover the city for New Year's. So by 2008, it's safe to say that the office knew what they were doing. Using a specialized supercomputer, the office would monitor weather patterns across 17,000 square miles of land that surrounded the city. Once heavy rain clouds were identified moving towards Beijing, planes, rockets, and anti-aircraft guns, loaded with silver iodide and dry ice, would seed the clouds while they were still far away from the capital, forcing them to release their rain early over rural areas outside of the city limits. And if the clouds moved too quickly and reached the city before they were seeded, they would spray them with liquid nitrogen in an attempt to shrink the raindrops so they stayed in the air longer, delaying any rainfall. And surprisingly, their plan worked. The opening ceremony went off without a hitch under clear blue skies, while the rest of the games also stayed mostly dry. But while China was celebrating its success, others weren't as happy. Changing the weather across such a big region was bound to cause unintended consequences. Forcing rain to fall in one region could disrupt rainfall somewhere else, potentially affecting China's neighbors. 2019 and 2024. The UAE is flooded by record rains twice in the space of 5 years. The fifth driest country on Earth, with less than 100 millimeters of rainfall a year, gets flooded by a rainstorm. And the April 2024 floods were catastrophic. In Al Ain, about 60 miles from Dubai, 256 millimeters of rain fell in just 24 hours. That's more than double the city's annual average. Streets became rivers, cars were washed away, and entire neighborhoods were submerged in water. The city's infrastructure, never designed to handle this kind of rainfall, completely failed. Meteorologists blamed a low-pressure system that trapped warm, moist air over the region. Basically, they said it was weird but a 100% natural event. But coming from a country who's never seen this kind of rainfall pretty much ever, very few people actually believed it. There was no way this sort of rainfall just happened naturally. But wait, doesn't the UAE carry out thousands of cloud seeding missions every year? Don't they target every single cloud that might produce rain because they have so few of them to begin with? Could the flooding and rainstorms of 2024 have been caused by cloud seeding? According to the UAE government, absolutely not. They didn't carry out any cloud seeding missions before or during the floods. But then again, the only other time the country has seen rain as bad as this was back in 2019, and back then, the government openly admitted that the heavy rainfall was probably caused by their cloud seeding. In November 2024, something strange also happened in the Saudi Arabian desert. It snowed. For the first time in history, huge parts of Saudi Arabia were covered in a blanket of snow, and no one could understand why. Like in the UAE, meteorologists said something about a low pressure system and moist air again. But this wasn't just rain or a drizzle, it was snow. Real actual snow, in a country that's never seen snow for its entire recorded history. And would you look at that, Saudi Arabia also does cloud seeding too. In fact, just 2 months before the snowfall, the Saudi Arabian government actually announced that it was going to ramp up its cloud seeding efforts and target even more parts of the country than ever before. And remember, cloud seeding isn't just for making rain. Back in the early days when cloud seeding was just invented, they used dry ice to create snow as well. And if weather control has this big of an impact on countries who are just starting to experiment with it, how much more has artificial weather control affected America, given that we were the ones that came up with it in the first place all those years ago?
So it's just crazy story. What are your thoughts, Jake?
Oh, just that it's no surprise that people blindly just say, oh, you guys are conspiracy theorists for talking about chemtrails, and they're actually contrails, and it's like they're like going like, nah, like all the evidence is stacked up. And my biggest concern is just the fact that we've not heard the current administration talk about this issue, because we can go outside and look up and see it's still going on. And so my question is why is this off limits with all of the promises that we've been given regarding exposing corruption, make America healthy again, all this kind of stuff? Why aren't they dealing with the most pressing issue, which is literally the crap that's raining down on our heads, right?
Well, that's why we need our White House press passes to, go and ask the question. I mean, that's what we're here for. And yeah, I'd love to ask that question. Why is that allowed? Because it used to be used for war, and now they're using it on its own people, which is insane if you think about it. It's like, duh, like what the hell? But anyways, what are your thoughts, Opa?
Well, I think that there are probably good uses of it, and obviously there are bad uses of it. And really, I don't think they really know what they're doing. So that's what's causing all of these big problems. And of course, the long-term effects of what they're doing up in the sky, they have no idea about either.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, it's like AI. Could be used for good, could be used for evil. It's like kind of the same kind of deal, except AI is on a completely different level.
Exactly.
So you guys at home, let me know what you think down in the comments. And that's all I got for weather modification and for chemtrails. But I do have one more clip, and I want you guys to please enjoy my sense of humor, volume 13. So check this out.
Look at this cat. This is a cat.
Me when I meet someone's
Lot
cat for
of
the
cat.
first time.
Beautiful body, short, cobby, great coat, beautiful pattern. I love the head. Broad, round, flat, deep break, nice smooth top head. Itsy bitsy teeny weeny ears down on the side of the head. I love it. Nice firm chin. Best in show, everybody. Hey!
This is Nigosaurus. They lived during Cretaceous period.
What'd you say that dinosaur name was? Matter of fact, don't repeat it again. I know they don't have no white dinosaur.
Are there any rock lyrics, Mr. Zappa, that you have heard in the past couple of years that you wouldn't want your children listening to?
We are the world.
Well,
that one always gets me.
Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy. Happy birthday, happy.
Let's talk about this, because this is fascinating. I remember very clearly, I think anybody who was alive at the time does. I remember my parents waking me up, and we went down and we watched you guys land on the moon.
No,
which
you
was
didn't. No, you didn't.
What?
Because there wasn't any television. There wasn't anybody taking a picture. You watched animation. So you associated what you saw with...
I have very hazy memories.
Yeah, I know.
Well, no, but what we saw was we all were gathered around the old curved top radio and listened.
Talking about how many feet we were going to the left and right, and then I said contact light, engine stop.
It was
and
exciting.
A few other things, and then Neil said, Houston, Tranquility Base, the Eagle has landed.
This was
Man, how about that?
That was very exciting.
Not a bad
cool
line.
animation.
Yeah. This was. So, were you self-conscious about all the? I mean, the entire Earth, is watching and listening to everything that you guys do. Were you self-conscious at all about what am I going to say? What if I say something that's kind of stupid? It's in the history books forever, like I want a cookie, or you
got it.
You're worried then.
We were focused. I was afraid that Neil might say, hey, you better go out first and, think up a couple of lines to say when you step on the moon.
Right. So that's a huge responsibility. Now,
bet, right.
You were not the first man to walk on the moon, but you've actually talked about this. You were the first man to relieve himself on the moon. Is that true?
That is correct.
That is correct.
Well, no.
This is... You want to get to the...
But not on the moon. You don't want to...
you didn't unzip.
You do not want to unzip.
Right,
no,
right. That would be stupid.
But we got a little device that...
I don't want to know about the device.
Juicy mangoes, you are looking very nice.
Cat owners get it.
Make it his favorite black single.
The nominees are Caravan Queen, No More Love on the Run, Billy Ocean.
Prince is my favorite. Watch this.
What's love got to do with it, Tina?
When Doves Cry. Prince. Go ahead, Al. And the winner is... Let's see what happens here, huh? When Doves Cry, Prince.
Poor Brian Wilson up there.
Is that Prince's bodyguard?
Yeah. Prince is a genius. I think he was just messing with everybody the whole time.
Thank you very much.
outrageous! Why so sad, sugar muffins? Juicy, juicy mangoes, you are looking very nice. Tung tung galang 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 tung tung galang galang galang.
My name is Lilo. Nice to meet you. Subscribe, mother trucker.
I got a lot of hate for this one, but a lot of love too.
Covenant of blood. What blood? The blood of this covenant. Glory to God. Cut the covenant with his father God.
Glory.
Yes, like Moses of old. There's they're coming one. Oh! Don't ever do it. Don't ever feel sorry for yourself. Don't ever do it! Absolutely stunning. Just delicious. It's so good. And he will be like Moses, and he'll live 120 years and say, yeah. Preach it, brother, preach it, brother, preach it.
Creepy, huh? Well, that's all I got for Please Excuse My Sense of Humor. And now a quick word from our friend Kristen. I want to introduce you guys to somebody named Kristen, who's one of the biggest forces behind Skiba News Nation. This is Kristen. She helps us get all the big guests. I understand that you're doing this full time now. So how can people find out how to use your service?
Well, I started Fellow Helper Agency, and you can go to fellowhelperagency.com. And I do any of the behind the scenes, email, getting the interviews, and I do prep work for the shows as well. I do timestamps and moderating.
She is the best with connects. If you like any of our shows, any of our big guests, she's the person to go to. And if you have a channel, definitely go to our website. So go check out fellowhelperagency.com. You got some memes for me, Jake?
Yeah, just a couple.
All right, meet me up. Meet me up.
So I just found a picture of the auto pen Joe Biden used to sign official White House documents. It looks like Barack Obama holding a pen.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
Now, this next one, when you remember all the political attacks that came against Donald Trump, this definitely seems a little vindictive, but it's kind of funny. Check this out. Hunter Biden has had Secret Service protection for an extended period of time, all paid for by the United States taxpayer. There are as many as 18 people on his detail, which is ridiculous. He is currently vacationing in, of all places, South Africa, where the human rights of people have been strenuously questioned. Because of this, South Africa has been taken off our list of countries receiving economic and financial assistance. Please be advised that effective immediately, Hunter Biden will no longer receive Secret Service protection. Likewise, Ashley Biden, who has 13 agents, will be taken off the list. I guess he's getting his pound of flesh for what they did to him.
Well, you know what Hunter Biden's doing? He's not coming to a court case. That's the whole reason why he's staying out there, because he's saying, "Oh, I can't afford it. I can't afford it."
Wow. Well, here we go. This is some top astronomy events coming up in 2025. Now, we've already passed through 3 of these, which are the planet tetrad, which is the some meteor showers. You had the planetary alignment that happened on my birthday, February 28th, and then I saw the March 14th blood moon with my little girl Aaliyah. We stayed up really late and got to see that. But I'm always fascinated with what's happening in the heavens, and just to give people a little heads up of these coming signs in the sky. Apparently there's a partial solar eclipse March 29th, the Lyrids peak meteor shower. Apparently Jupiter is going to meet Venus in the sky on August 12th, as well as the Perseids peak. So that's going to be a cool night to go out and look up. September 7th, there's going to be another blood moon eclipse. On the 21st, another partial solar eclipse. Saturn at opposition. I'm not really sure what that means, but apparently it's on this list. And then, of course, these other things. But I always find it interesting to pay attention to the sky, and we got to catch these other previous events, so pretty interesting. Here's a interesting meme. Not trusting an industry that is financially dependent on you being sick does not make you a conspiracy theorist, but actually shows critical thinking skills, just like we covered in our news segment today. And the last little meme that I thought was interesting that I want to share this week is this one. If Facebook existed in 1776, the British are coming! The British are coming! Fact checked. False information. Checked by independent fact checkers, not all of the British were coming, only the British Army. Oh, man. All right, that's all the memes for this week.
All right, thanks, Jake, for another great current news and memes as always. Opa, thank you for another great Opa's Corner. I hope you guys enjoyed today's History's Mystery segment and the episode as a whole. Stay awake, not woke, subscribe, and stay tuned. If you like what we do here on Skiba News Nation, please like and subscribe. And also share with others so we can grow the biggest truth-seeking community on the internet. Huge shout out to all of our Patreons out there. If you like bonus content, you want some extra Skiba News Nation stuff, please go to patreon.com/Skiba News Nation.
Son of the legendary Rob Jeremiah Skiba.
It's like I don't even want to wake up.